Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. I'm here with art prof teaching artist Jordan McCracken-Foster. Welcome to our video where we critique your artwork. Today we are looking at a painting by Nehemiah Cisneros. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. And we also have a colored pencil drawing by Mary Harris. If you would like to grow as an artist, or if you're like everybody in the US and locked in your house with nothing to do, we can help you guys out with our critiques and our tutorials. All right, let's get started with Nehemiah's piece. And so you guys have a little bit of information about it. The title of it is 2020, and it's an acrylic painting on canvas. There's a pretty intricate artist statement that you can read down in the video description below. Let's just look at the piece first, Jordan, without digging into the artist statement, and then we can maybe talk a little bit later about the relationship of the statement with the painting. And I believe this is a pretty big piece, so there's that to consider. Jordan, what's your first impression of this painting?
The first thing I think was I really appreciate the bizarre stylization of it and how much is being fit into this piece. So there's all these colors, all these all this content that's in here, and just there's it seems like there's a ton of ideas that are being thought about as this piece is being created, and it also feels very unapologetic to me. It doesn't feel like sorry, I think I hit that microphone. It feels like something that was like, I'm going to create this. I don't care what people think. This is what's in my mind, and this is what's going to be put on the canvas. So that I really appreciate for those aspects.
I mean, the first thing that I really am struck by is it's such a dynamic composition. I'll tell you, it's for me really refreshing to see such a strong composition because I feel like everybody's naggy mom always being like, come on, composition, think about the composition. I'm saying that over and over again. And I'm so excited about this composition because you just keep navigating through the whole piece. It's like the second you discover one area, it leads to another. And I
Mhm.
just find myself just looking at all the different parts of the painting. To me, compositions that don't work so well, I get really stuck in one area or I have
Mhm.
no interest in another. And this is a piece I just keep jumping around and looking at everything. What do you think about the composition?
I think it's actually really cool. I love I was gonna say action figure, but I mean like the Medusa blue figure. I love the way that that's posed, the exaggeration in the anatomy, and the way the arm is holding the sword and everything. I think all that's really cool. And the only thing that I am concerned about is that yeah, as much as I appreciate everything that's going on, I wonder if it's too much going on, you know. And I wonder if a little bit less detail would make it easier to see. But it also might be part of the intent to have it be this jam packed with stuff. So it's hard to really know.
I mean, for me, one of the things that's really helping with that area is that I think the balance between saturated colors and more muted, darker colors is really well done. Like the color of those snakes, that lime green, it really leaps out against that very dull, muted purple in the background. So I really appreciate a lot of the color relationships that Nehemiah has set up. Oh, wow, we got a
Mhm.
lot of people in the chat. Hello, Midnight Music, 10,000 Crows, Cami and Lux, and Pennington Arts. You guys tell us, do you think this piece is too busy? Because I know what you mean, Jordan. When you look at a piece and you're like, is it too much? Or is that exactly what I like about it? It's a little bit tough to judge. I'm going to say right now that I'm cool with the chaos. I guess I'm just trying to make connections between the
Mhm.
images and why they've been put together. I mean, do you see connections or does it feel random to you?
That might be more the direction I mean when I say there's a lot going on. Because if I'll give you an example, like let's say I'm looking at an image of a character standing in a bunch of debris, right? Like maybe a building exploded or something, and maybe it's a superhero piece. you could still have all the debris and all the stuff that comes with it and make it look busy, but also still feel like it has a focal point and a central idea behind it. Whereas this, there's so much going on. You have this bird that's painted completely differently than everything else on top of that skull. And then you have the cats down there, and then you have like this Greek pottery, and in that you have this orange monster fish thing. It's just I'm not really sure what is more important than the other. I would say the first read is obviously the blue figure with the Medusa neon colored hair, but after that, I'm not sure where to look next.
Oh, Nehemiah is in the chat. That's terrific. I'm so happy you can join us live. We probably will be picking your brain, Nehemiah. And if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Enoch is saying, I think it's a bit confusing. Although each character is awesome, they just seem a little disconnected. I don't see a connection. Lux is saying a few things could use a little less detail. Science Matter says they don't know how it all fits together. Derek is saying it's a lot to take in, but I like that I have to connect it all to a cohesive story. Science Matter says very nicely illustrated, though. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is this supposed to be a particular culture or time period? And maybe the reason I think that is because of the Greek bowl, but I don't know. That's not like a Greek bowl, though. Like, that looks like an average bowl you would see today. Like, the Greeks didn't have bowls like that. So
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what that is. I mean, do you locate any other culture specifically other than the Greek imagery at the bottom?
Uh, no, I mean the figures in the soup or the Pepto-Bismol soup kind of remind me of like they're just supposed to be like judges, but it feels like very 1700s, old America, and I don't know, maybe the sword might be something from like a fantastical like ancient China or something like that. Like there's a whole lot of things that it could be, but I'm not pinpointing any one specific thing.
Well, I guess the Greek imagery stands out because it really looks Greek. Like, I wouldn't mistake that for being something else. But the other
Mhm.
ones, they're a little bit more ambiguous. I mean, the Medusa, I think a lot of people think about ancient Greece with that because of the story. But then the multiple eyes almost makes me think about a lot of those Indian gods. And so I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm sort of thinking now that we're really starting to pick this apart that maybe the Greek imagery at the bottom is a distraction, that maybe the specificity of that we can really nail it down as being from ancient Greece is problematic because everything else is not that specific. I don't know. Let's see. Pennington is saying, I like the style, even if it's a little bit confusing. Enoch likes how it pops out and says it reminds you of the muses from Hercules. And Pennington is saying, I get Japanese Viva from that snake slash fish in the bowl. And Iconic is saying, I don't know how the cats fit in. Yeah, let's talk about the cats. What's going on with the cats? Because I can't figure out the space. I feel like the sky makes sense to me because that's a backdrop and it's going back into space. But I don't know, like Jordan, do you feel like there's a ground here? Are the cats holding the bowl up? Like that whole lower section, I don't know how to navigate that in terms of space.
Yeah, it feels like something's a little wonky with the perspective there. That's making it seem like the cats are on a different plane. Also, there's no shadows underneath them, especially the one on the left. The one on the right, I could forgive simply because of it's at the bottom, and there's not a whole lot going on around it. But the one on the left, I'm just kind of like, where is he? Like, what's he doing? What's going on? So yeah, I think there might be an issue with that. But again, given the style, it may be okay. Because even in the just the foreground versus the background, the way the details are seen with the different types of shadows and the line work that's in the foreground. There's so much going on that I almost don't even want to say what's acceptable and what's not for something like this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it almost makes me wonder if maybe the issue is the bowl. Because if you think about it, the bowl is really what unites all the figures. I mean, yeah, the cats are sort of these little accessories on the side, but the two little yellow people, the orange dragon, the blue figure, they're all immersed in the liquid of the bowl. And if you look at the placement of the bowl and the composition, it's a little wonky. Like you have these two tangents on the left hand side, which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, it's like the edge of the piece, and then the object goes right up against the edge of the painting. And also at the bottom of the bowl, it's like almost on the edge. And like, what if you took the bowl and just like shoved it to the left so that the placement of the bowl was just less centered? I don't know. Maybe that's the one part of the composition that could be better.
It does force the rest of it does feel the composition to be it forces it to be centered. You know, everything else feels like it's kind of doing its own thing, like the trees, the cats, the flowers and stuff. But the bowl's the one thing that makes it feel like there's something stable. Um, you know, and the other thing I just thought about is the way this figure's standing in the bowl. Um, unless the lower legs are like super short, it feels like those legs would kind of pop out, or the figure needs to be a little smaller because it doesn't anatomically work as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I'm thinking that that would have to be a really short leg for that to be the case, for it to fit in. I mean, one thing I was thinking, because it's a very chaotic composition, I think we know that, but I don't know, maybe the stability of the bowl is not helping. Like, picture this. What if the bowl was tipped over and the Pepto Bismol liquid was like all over the ground and the cats were like sloshing in it? I wonder if that's just the extra push that this piece needs to be more chaotic. Because the more I look at it, I just love the action in the figures. And I just look at the bowl, and also it's a little wonky on the left hand side. Like, do you see how the Greek figures, they don't move with the shape of the bowl? They look like they're
Hmm.
just drawn on. And because the bowl is rounded, the imagery of those Greek figures should also do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I can see what you're saying. I think that would be really cool, actually.
Enoch is saying, what media? Enoch, it's in acrylic. But actually, I was going to say, Nehemiah, I don't know what other paint mediums you work in, but I was really surprised this was an oil painting, because I honestly thought it was gouache. And we do have a gouache tutorial that you guys can check out. And gouache is so good for getting those very graphic, very bright, saturated colors. And so, Nehemiah, I don't know if you've ever done gouache, but I just sort of feel like, looking at your painting, that you would be really great with gouache. I mean, I'd love to see you just do some little miniature paintings. I think you would do a really great job with that. Pennington is saying, I love the flow. My eyes went through the main character's arms and then through the sword, which led me to the characters in the bowl. Awesome. That's great. Okay, Jordan, let's look at the artist statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just pick out a couple pieces from it. It's in the video description below if you guys want to read it. And so Nehemiah talks about meticulous line work of comic books, exaggerated anatomies of cartoon characters, looking at black exploitation cartoons like Fritz the Cat and Coonskin. What is the impact of an animal dressed in clothes, especially if they dress like people I know? The paintings have triumphant use of humor, fantasy, copes with horrific American histories, like the tragedy of misled youth. And then I guess at the bottom, they talk about the figures fighting for survival in a society blown out of proportion due to mental trauma, late stage capitalism, indulgence, and hubris. Wow, that is a lot to take in, Nehemiah. What's your first reaction now that we've looked at the painting for a little while? Now we've seen the statement. What do you think, Jordan?
Um, I'm so when I first read this, I was a bit confused by everything that was being said, and even after reading it and looking at the piece again, I still don't know if it answers all of my questions because and maybe it's just me personally. You know, I'll totally throw that out there. I'm used to seeing artwork that has like a very specific focus where it's narrowed down to one thing, and I feel like this piece might be trying to say too much with just one piece. If this were like a triptych or something like that, maybe it'd be a little bit easier to manage. But for me, it's a lot to focus on, and I'm not sure what part of the painting focuses on what aspect of the artist statement.
I mean, I'll tell you, artist statements are hard to write. They are really a struggle for most artists, myself included. And if you guys need help writing an artist statement, because chances are at some point, if you start to work professionally, you're going to have to write one. We do have this video. It's in our playlist that gives career advice for artists. So I recommend that you guys check that out because we go through all the nuts and bolts of writing an artist statement. But I'll tell you, I'm lost with the artist statement. I mean, just in a single sentence, there's so many things packed in. I mean, the last sentence says, let's see, oh, that's Mary's statement. Let me go down. The last statement says, fight for survival, society blown out of proportion, mental trauma, late stage capitalism, indulgence, and hubris. I mean, like just those last 8 words, you totally lost me. So, what I might say, just to critique your statement, not necessarily the artwork, but maybe to give it a little more focus and specificity, like even if you're thinking about all those things, I don't think you necessarily have to say that in the statement because it does confuse people after a little while. So I would just recommend rethinking that because artist statements are hard, but I really honestly felt more confused after I read your statement. And this is after looking at a really beautiful, complex painting. Let's see. Enoch is saying, I thought it was gouache. The colors are blocked so cleanly. Salty Person said that they thought it looked like a digital painting. The colors are so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, painting technique wise, Nehemiah, you have immaculate brushwork. I mean, I don't feel like I'm a very good painter, so I feel like when I see people who really know how to handle paint, I just am in awe of it. I mean, what do you think about the painting technique, Jordan?
Yeah, I actually really enjoy it, and it reminds me a lot of the kind of graphic animation or comic style that I think you're getting inspiration from. And so when I first saw it, I thought it was jumping off the page. It was really cool to look at. And my only like real uh, criticism for it were the things that it involved, like in terms of like what's this doing here, what is going on and stuff. But the actual look of it is really cool.
Well, so two artists, Nehemiah, that I'd recommend you look at is Peter Saul. He's a very different artist than you, and a lot of his work is about popular culture, a lot of it is about politics, but I feel like he has the same almost color scheme as you, and also these just crazy compositions that are things are shooting all over the place. So he would be a great person to look at because I feel like he is heavily influenced by cartoons and comics and those types of compositions. Now, on the flip side of that, we have Shazia Sikander, who is a contemporary artist, and I love her work because it's very elegant, but it's also somewhat chaotic, and she does mix in references to different cultures without getting too specific, although some of them are. But she would be a really good person to look at because I think she's so good at knowing how to balance all of those parts. So Nehemiah, I think that it's a really like visually striking piece, but you just got to work through some of the artist statement and be able to really think through what it is you're really after because it's like you're trying to paint 50 paintings all at once. And actually, by narrowing it down, I think your message is going to come through better in the future. All right, guys, if you would like to submit your own artwork to get a free live critique here on YouTube, just go to our main site, rprof.org, click on critiques, and you can submit to our form there. Okay, the second artist we're going to look at is Mary Harris. The title of this piece is Weight We Carry. It's 18 by 24, and it's done in colored pencil. Mary also has a very specific artist statement, but Jordan, why don't you just tell me what your first impression is of this piece?
So the first things that I noticed about this is that the style is really, really unique, and particularly when it comes to the lighting. And I think that's what helps drive this piece for me. And the way you're getting the lighting on the skin, especially, and how the shadow on the opposite side of the skin kind of bounces off, it's really, really unique and really, really cool. So I think that's my favorite aspect of the painting.
I'll tell you guys, I cannot believe this is colored pencil. Like, this does not look like what you expect colored pencil to look like because most of the time when I see colored pencil, people are either using it to just do quick little sketches. I've done that a lot myself, or it's that like hyper realistic, copied from a photo down to the little eyelash. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes, I can name some artists, but I won't do
Right.
that.
It's all over Instagram, and people are so into that. But this piece to me, I mean, I saw the image. I really thought it was a painting. I did not think it was colored pencil. And so I just am really in awe of that because colored pencil, it's so easy to get picky about it. And it's also really slow. I mean, it is not a material that you can really rush through quickly. So I'm just really impressed by the treatment of the material because it's just not what you expect to see for colored pencil. All right, so Jordan, what is the story here? Because there is a particular story, but I want to hear what your interpretation is first.
Are we talking like before I read the
Yeah,
art
yeah, yeah.
statement or after?
Pre reading of the artist statement.
Okay. So when I first saw this, I it felt like a continuous frame. Like you see this person like walking through this frame, uh, and for whatever reason they're carrying these balloons. Although it took me a while to see that they were balloons, because right now they look like bubbles. It might have to do with the way that the texture looks, or it may have something to do with the color, because blue and bubbles they just kind of connect. Um, and so it felt like but with the red background behind it also felt like there was a sense of danger. And so I was trying to combine all those things. Like, okay, you got this person, you got these balloons, and you got this danger. And right there is where I kind of got lost. So after that, I was like, I get all the individual elements, but putting it together is where I'm stuck.
Tell us in the chat if you guys knew what the objects were that the figures are carrying, because I had no idea they were balloons. Like, I thought they were just soft packages. I don't know. Like, it did not ever cross my mind that they were balloons until I read the artist statement. And you guys can go down at the bottom and read that video description. But I don't know. I didn't see it because I guess I associate balloons with like really bright colors, and it's a little
Hmm.
strange that they're all that muted blue. It's a little bit
Yeah.
odd, but also I sort of feel like the balloons look like they're metallic. Like the sheen doesn't quite feel right for a balloon.
Yeah. Well, so I worked at a party store for a long time. I've seen plenty of balloons and seen all these types and stuff like that. So I'm used to seeing balloons that look more like that.
Your balloon knowledge is better than
Uh,
mine.
yeah, so my balloon knowledge is impeccable. No, but the thing that gave it away for me was the little tied ends on two of them in particular. One's on the far right above the head of the woman, and then the other's on the far left. And it's kind of in front of the green hat, I guess, or I guess it's a hat, right? Yeah, I don't think it's hair necessarily.
Well, also I'm wondering, what do you think that brown stuff is that they're
On the bottom.
waiting? Is that, I don't know. The first thing I thought was a tree. But then is it consuming them or is it lava? Like, I'm totally not knowing what that is. What do you think that looks like?
I thought it was a tree. Um, that was honestly my first thing. I thought it was tree bark. And then after that, it really didn't make sense because I was like, how's she walking through the trees? And you know, and then I was like, maybe it's a pattern on a skirt or something, but it, I really am not quite sure. I don't know.
All right, Tammy's saying, I saw they were balloons right away. The ladies are the weight holding the helium balloons down. What are the ladies carrying in life, weighing them down, burdened by something? Pennington is saying, I think it'd help if she made some balloons come in front of the characters. Oh, that's a great suggestion, Pennington, because I feel like, yeah, you're right. The balloons are really shoved to the backdrop. And if you're holding balloons, I mean, they're going to go all over the place. I would imagine some of them at the very least would be like in front of you and stuff like that. All right, let's go down and read Mary's artist statement because she did have a very specific story. So Mary explains the balloons are representative of problems or burdens. No one knows the heft of your problems besides you. Other people can't see how heavy your problems are. That's why we, as the viewers, we're looking at a figure struggling to carry something that we think is actually light, when in reality, we don't know how heavy the figure's weight really is. And the figure is picking up more balloons as they go. Okay, well, do you guys think that that matches the images that we're looking at? Jordan, what do you think? Do you think this artist statement's working in conjunction with the drawing?
I feel like this is one of those examples where I think more thumbnail sketching would have helped a lot because there are certain elements that I think we both understood before reading the artist statement, and that were leading us to what the artist had in mind. But there are some things that are not very clear. So the like the balloons thing, like I saw it, but the fact that you didn't see it says something. So maybe playing with the silhouette, because when you think about a group of balloons or a bouquet of balloons, there's a very specific shape to it. Like in the movie Up with Carl Fredrickson's house, and he lifts it up by balloons. Even from far away, you know exactly what that is. So if we had seen a better silhouette of the balloons, I think that would have helped. And I actually don't know if you need all four figures. I think maybe just one would be enough to tell the story that the artist statement is talking about.
Well, my other issue with the balloons is if you think about balloons, their purpose, it's really silly. It's like this blown up plastic thing, and woo, balloons, we're at a party. Like people don't usually have balloons around in darker situations. And so I wonder if just the choice of a balloon, I don't mind the part about like, oh, it's lightweight, but I don't know. I just feel like it's such a fun image that it's hard for me to make that association. Tammy's saying the ladies are all wearing the same thing and look similar. They do. And actually, they remind me a lot of this series of photographs by Salgado. He took these in a gold mine in Serra Pelada. It's in Brazil. I love these photos. I mean, they're really striking and hard to look at. But one thing you do notice is that the workers are all wearing the same thing. And they almost start to look like the same figure after a little while. So I don't know. I felt like these women are like doing manual labor. Like it's something that they have to do. I don't know. But then they're wearing tank tops, which is a little strange also. I don't know. Do you think it's a contemporary image, Jordan, or do you think it's historical?
Um, I don't know. I was thinking contemporary when I first saw it. I mean, there's nothing that makes me think that this would be, 50, 60 years in the past. At least not specifically. There might be something you can add to it that would allude to that, but I don't think I don't want to. I don't think that plays a significant role, at least from the way I'm viewing it.
Hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the color. What's your take on the color? It's pretty saturated. The colors that are lighter are still bright yellow. Do you think that's working?
Yeah, I think the best parts of the piece are actually just the way that the skin is articulated. And that was one of the first things I brought up when you asked me my opinion, and I still stand by that. I think it's really cool because um, it feels like this person's working on a really hot day, like one of those days that you just can't wait to end, and it just feels hot just by looking at it. And so I think in that aspect, it's really successful. But I do see what you're saying about being very overly saturated. I think there are some parts that could be kind of toned down a bit, especially in the background.
I feel like the background would do better if it was like a darker, more muted maroon because I love the saturation of the red in the bodies. It feels hot and uncomfortable, and the skin feels very fleshy and very stretched out. So it's great in the figures. I just feel like the background, it's like it looks like wallpaper, and that doesn't fit either. And so the scene's a little bit confusing. Like I can't really tell if they're supposed to be outdoors or if it's a fantasy place. It's a little bit hard to read. Let's see. Enoch is saying, powerful, quite relevant statement. Today's world, conversations of privilege have become quite relevant. It's easy to look at someone and misjudge how their life really is. That's a great statement you just said, Enoch. I mean, this is a very corny phrase, but it definitely makes me think about things differently. Have you ever heard that phrase where it's something like, be nice to people you know, everybody's fighting a battle that you know nothing about? And that's sort of what this piece makes me think of, that it's like some people look like they have this perfect life, and then you find out later that they're completely falling apart. I mean, my whole theory on the human world is everybody struggles. Everybody has something in their lives, and you probably don't know about it It's just some people can hide it better than others. So I love the theme of this piece. I just wonder if the image, just the pieces, like the tree thing at the bottom, the wallpaper background, the balloons. I mean, really, the best part of the piece to me is the figures. The figures are really expressive. I mean, Jordan, you're so good at anatomy. What's your take on the anatomy of these figures?
Yeah, I think that it's really, really strong. I love the lighting on there. There's like a couple of small moments where it's like, oh, I think this forearm's a little too big, or that hand's like a little too, it's really small things, but nothing that jumps out at me as like it's taking me out of the image that Mary's trying to sell.
Well, I think Mary's really consistent about the stylization of the figures. And I'll tell you, as a group figure composition, it's really dynamic. Like one figure leads you upwards, she points downwards at the next one. I mean, the figures to me, they really function as a group. And that's hard to do. I feel like a lot of the times when I see multi figure compositions, the figures are too separate or the scale's a little bit strange. I mean, these really work great as a group. And like Nehemiah's piece, which we looked at, wonderful composition. I mean, I just am like, oh, going gaga over these compositions. Like, I don't usually get to do that. So it's like really, really nice to be able to see people really engaging with all four corners and really thinking about how those figures spread throughout. Oh, you're welcome, Nehemiah. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. I mean, I have to tell you guys, I was talking to Lauren the other day, like, I cannot believe the stuff we're getting. I mean, there's such a range. I told Lauren the other day, we got a submission from somebody who's 11. And I was like, that's incredible. Like, I love that. We get people who are like applying for master's degrees, but we also get 11, 13-year-old kids. I think that's really, really cool. Anyway, guys, I want to just show you really briefly Leon Golub because he's sort of in the same category in terms of multi-figure compositions that have a lot of exaggerated textures. I mean, he's a little bit more violent in terms of the imagery. A lot of his images are about the Vietnam War, oftentimes images of people interrogated, being tortured. So it's really not for the faint of heart. But Mary, if you're watching, take a look at Leon Golub because I think he's really good at getting the figures to integrate with the background. Like this one here is almost monochromatic, and the figures almost emerge like ghosts out of that background. So take a look at Leon Golub. By the way, guys, for those of you trapped at home, like all of us, right, Jordan?
Oh yeah.
We have a new site, not a new site, a new section on artprof.org. You'll find it in the menu bar. And it's a complete guide to teaching and learning art online. And it's great if you're a teacher and you're scrambling, like all of us, to transition to a remote classroom. But students, we got you guys covered too, because look at this. We have a page of art prompts, and they are specifically art prompts that don't cost a lot of money to make, that don't make a huge mess, and that you can easily do at home. And we also have this new section, which is home art supplies, stuff that you can find outside your door, stuff you can find in your kitchen. I had so much fun taking the photos for this page. So we hope you guys will check this out. Pennington is saying, do you know when the Discord will be ready? You know what? I need to get on that because I've been so distracted by this new section that I have not gotten on that, but I should. That is definitely at the top of my list. Anyway, I hope you guys will explore artprof.org because there are a lot of other sections on there that you're going to want to check out. And we hope that you will join the Art Prof family by subscribing to our channel. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters who make everything possible. Thank you to all of you who contributed to the critique. It's a wonderful conversation where we have all these voices. Thank you so much to Mary and Nehemiah for submitting. Have a good night, you guys. Stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye.